Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you for that intervention, full of ideas and some wonderful and very practical ones. And this is why you have been such a great partner, with the flexibility and the openness to listen and work and actually practically engage in the conversations to come up with ideas that we can roll out together. And I think this is the perfect crowd for it. And I want to also open the floor for some of the issues that was mentioned and touched upon by Monica, including the engagement with China, the targeting of parliamentarians, engagement with the elders, and also measuring 4.7. So I'll open the floor. If there are any interventions on that front, can I just take a couple? Ilya, Julia, Ben, and then we'll go for another round. Ilya.
Thank you. Unfortunately, my question is not to Monica and a reaction to your brilliant questions. I do like the challenges that you posed, though I've took them down. I think it would be interesting to think through them a lot. My question is quite directed to Seth. Your talk about behavioral change resonated quite a lot with me. I think a lot of the work that we try to do is also to create the possibility of behavioral change for the people that we try to engage in our work. We do this by trying to create this awakening of a sense of urgency that something needs to happen, but also to give skills and show them a pathway to where they can do something about it. But my question was just, what are your best practices, your learnings on how to create this behavioral change? That would be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for all these inspiring words and also these challenges and questions. I also like to highlight, I think a lot of us in the room have challenges and also a lot of interest in working with China. So if anyone has any leads on that, I think a lot of opportunities, a lot of NGOs in the room will be interested by that. And specifically, I think it's something we should focus on and work on for the next symposium. I wanted to just reflect on one of your points, Monica, about scaling and I think one thing that has been important in my journey of SDSN, and that was mostly thanks to the leadership of Sam, who was always asking me, how do we scale this? Is how to make the solution that we're developing now having the greatest impact possible. I think we've heard a lot about great ideas, and we need to see how we can disseminate them to have really the greatest impact, because all the projects I've heard about today were really inspiring, and so I really want us to think also together on how we scale them. And I know Sam has been bugging me and Yijun on how do we scale our processes, how do we scale our impact, and it's just a question I wanted to open to you all, and a point of reflection I wanted to highlight from Monica's. Thank you.
Nikhil, I loved everything you said. I love everything. I agree with everything. Yijun, same. I want all of it. I want to be involved. Monica, same. And Jim, I agree. So that was just amazing. I just had to say that. That was important. I have no idea what the global citizen education with UNESCO is. I want to know more about that. I want our whole network, the millions of students who are part of our network to receive that. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like something they should have. Unfortunately, that's not a question. But it's short.
Comments? It's short. That's what I like. It doesn't have to be a question. As long as it's short, I'll take it. And just a quick comments on the issue on the 4.7. So it's actually quite extraordinary that goal 4.7, which is about what we talked about this morning, which is education for sustainable development, whether at the primary, secondary, or tertiary level, is not measured. We have no idea how many schools, how many curriculums around the world are actually teaching this, what impact it's having. And I think this should be something that this group engages with, especially some of our research partners, is to how to develop metrics that can be measured. And in fact, there was a working group that tried to do this, but it never really manifested. And I think we can really make this as part of the agenda, because as the saying goes, you treasure what you measure. If we cannot measure it, it will be very hard to make the right decisions and policy changes for it.
And I would cap that with the SDG dashboard, if I may say. That would be that's an effort to measure that.
Great.
speak about that.
Great, fantastic. And the other thing is that we do have a couple of wonderful partners in China, which is one of them is SDS in Hong Kong. I don't want to get say that SDS in Hong Kong has links and runs things in China, but to say that there are some links that we can capitalize on. Ijun studies that in China and is involved directly with the work of Tsinghua University, who the chair of that initiative is also a co-chair of the SDSN, Professor Xu Lan. And of course, one of our partners, YouthThink, which we launched the Youth Solutions Report with, is a major youth-run NGO in China. So there are a couple of really interesting connections there that we can tap into. Wanted to take more comments and interventions from the floor. Chief Nat, Hazami, and Clayton down the back.
Thank you very much, Sam. And I would like to just take this opportunity to apologize to you all. I had some experience on my way here, and I was bent on coming. So I missed one flight, but I made sure that I got here. So thank you very much for your patience. Right. Thank you. So I would just like to use this opportunity to share just some few things with you. The point that you are making is very critical and very important. That is to say that, gone are the days when we used to have some leaders that you would just go to sleep and think that the leaders would take the good decisions that will help you, because the countries that has been built over the years were built by some good leaders. But now we do have some irresponsible leaders, to the extent that if you don't take care, and if the young people of today don't take up the challenge and the mantle to try to take critical decisions, is going to come back to haunt us, because they'll be gone by the time that we are in the driving seat. And so you better act now. And that's the more reason why the issue of education and development of the Sustainable Development Goals into curriculum is very critical. Back in Ghana, fortunately, I have had a good experience of working with politicians. I worked with 5 different successive ministers for health. And the trick was that they were from different political backgrounds, and they all decided to maintain me because of how I related with them. So I learned a lot. And what I have learned is that you need to make sure that whatever you believe in is well directed through education. Once it finds itself in the corridors of education, in a form of a curriculum, a policy, or anything within the walls of education, it is likely to be sustained, because students will learn about it and will practice it one way or the other, directly or indirectly. And that's the more reason why in Ghana, I am bent on working with the government to ensure that this educational curriculum on the SDGs are well enshrined and curriculums are developed. We are working with 4 different universities back home in Ghana, and one university is actually a university that has been created to train teachers. And so that is where we are planting the curriculum development with the pilot that we seek to do. And once we get the teachers trained on that topic, and we have it in other universities also being trained as courses, the bottom line is that it will find its way into the mainstream curriculum that will be taught. So I would just want us to look at it this way. Where do we find ourselves now as a people? And where do we want to go? And how do we want to get there? And that is why I would want us not to see Sustainable Development Solutions Network as just a name, but the bottom line is that it is to provide solutions. The sustainability of it is very paramount, but it's not just about identifying challenges like we always do. We go to the UN and we have our president come. From my part of the world, they come and we all know what happens. They come with large entourage and with huge money expended, and at the end of the day, they bring nothing home. And we have ourselves going back to square one. So solutions is what we need. So as young people, we must not repeat that same mistake of engaging in talk shops where we come and meet like this and we talk nice talks, we write nice scripts, we come and read them out and go back and we don't do what we came here to discuss. I'm talking as a field specialist, and that's my background. I implement, and I get people to write about what I do. I don't do the writing myself. I believe in doing the work and having people to come and then look at what we have done and getting it written. And I will encourage all of us to do same, so that we are able to actually practicalize what it is that we believe in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Nat. You've woken me up. Hazami.
Does that work? Yep. So first and foremost, thank you all very much for your very insightful comments. I have kind of a question / a quick comment on really trying to understand behavior change. And Sam, you talked about metrics. I think metrics are broken. And I think what we're challenged to do is how do we shake up and disrupt the broken systems that have failed us? As much as we want to celebrate the MDGs, we've been failing. If we look at the state of humanity currently, yes, we've made mass progress on a lot of issues, but our morality, our social fabric, you talked about nationalism, we're regressing, despite the fact that we have more progress, more technology, more connectivity than we've ever had before in human history. So my question is, how can we kind of bridge what Sam said with regards to really focusing on academia and research and technology, but also kind of demand better? We demand better from our foundations, from our governments, from our institutions, of shattering this idea of everything needs to be metric-driven, because most of behavior change and behavioral economics is rooted in irrational human decisions of fear, of hate crimes, of racism, of discrimination, of phobias of all types, and you can't measure that. Unless I tell you I'm racist, I'm not gonna come and tell you I'm racist, so how do you measure my level of racism or my ability to act on it? So I think there's something that we really need to think about, and I'd love to kind of put that on us to maybe challenge ourselves, is how do we create new metrics that really enable us to see progress based on human values and human behavioral traits that need to, in essence, change in order for us to achieve the SDGs. And I'd love your opinion on those as they embed into kind of your research, but also kind of frameworks for teaching, doing things better.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Clayton Luce Ferrara. This is my 4th year being here, so I just want to recognize Sam and the whole crew here. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be back. I really have to go out of my way to just say every single year I'm just extraordinarily inspired by the people here, especially the women in the room. They're truly some of the strongest women that are working on some of the most difficult problems to solve in society, and you all are just heroes for me, so I just really wanted to mention that. This is an extremely difficult work. We are really fighting in the trenches in the front lines of social justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and it is not easy. None of us take on this work for the paycheck. We are here because it is truly our mission and our heart. I know when I was coming up in building the organization that I'm part of now, and as executive director called Ideas for Us, it was 5 years of us working before we had a single paid employee. I used to say Ideas for Us was my 9 to 5, meaning my 9 p.m. to my 5 a.m. every single day for 8 years of my life now, and now it's even more than that. So what we need to really think about is the fact that we are the first domino in a systemic change that needs to happen. We need to educate people that are younger than us, in Gen Z, that are going to follow us. We have to absolutely lead by example. That needs to be one of the most important things that we can do. And we need to understand that nothing short of a complete global coup should be our goal. Taking over all of the elected positions in our respective countries, all of the elected positions in our local government, both city and county or district, and that we have to have people that enter these elected positions that understand and believe in science. Because what is going on right now is really unprecedented, and I just wanted to say, you know, stay in the fight, everyone. We're here as a resource to you. I have a lot more I can add, but I want to be brief, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we now provide some comments from the panel, reflections, feedback? Just wanted to, Mr. Sen.
Okay, the three specific sets of questions to me. First, on best practices. And in my world, what works first is simulation. And the case study kind of model, Harvard Business School uses that. And I found that even in training in international law, for example, and James is familiar with the WTO, the cases we do theoretically and we bring the actual people involved in the resolution to these learners, I think that has a much deeper impact than only textbook learning. The second is gamification. Young people learn much better through gamification than they would through normal. I don't have that much confidence in e-learning alone. I must say that e-learning is not enough. And blended learning works better where you combine e-learning with a face-to-face training. I use that with a bunch of diplomats. I get 30 Indian diplomats a year, and they have to do 3 months of e-learning. Only if they pass that e-learning are they invited to Geneva for the face-to-face, and that works much better. So these are 3 or 4 things which work in my world of learning, which I think is good. In China, we are working with Tongji, Tsinghua, Wuhan, and Huangzhou, the universities there, and we'll be happy to share it because we're doing a lot together on curricular development, on joint master's degrees with Geneva University. What have we learned in the process? I'd be very happy to share with your networks. To your question, Yijun, on what we have, resources which I'd like to share with everyone in this room, is 2 platforms we've created. One is called UNCC Learn. If you Google it, UN Climate Change Learn, and it's not because UNITAR has developed it, but we've done it with 38 other UN entities. So it's our gold standard on climate change learning. And I'm very proud of the fact that every teacher in the Dominican Republic has done that part of the 101 on climate change, which makes them climate literate, to teach school students about climate change. We have a similar thing called UN SDG Learn, which is much more diverse because it's been done with the engagement of business, academia, and I want these to be interactive. So if you all access these, you have information, you want to send me a critique, you want to see how these are modernized, you get something like a like, so incentivize you to go back to see what the business sector has been doing in making e-learning platforms more interesting through games and so on. Please come back to me. So these are the 2. Your long-term question is much more complex. To that lady, I'm addressing your question. How do we, in the long term, look at our values and beliefs, and those have been changing? I can only give you a practical thing from my own life. When I look back at my own values and beliefs, what were the strongest influences for me? I think teachers in school probably and peer groups in college are the ones who probably shape things like compassion, caring, and solidarity, and those stay with you through life. But why is that atmosphere different today? And why is there less of caring and less of compassion and less of solidarity? I think that's very contextual, and we really have to go back. We can't dismiss political systems or temporary political leadership as the reason why these faiths and beliefs are disappearing. But there must be more fundamental things, and we really need a closer examination of those. So there's no short-term, quick answer to a very complex question.
Thanks, Sam. And I just wanted to recognize the work that UNITAR is doing in China, as well as Unleash's choice to hold this year's Innovation Lab in Shenzhen. I think these are all great steps in the right direction. As Sam mentioned, if you'd like to know a bit more about what SDSN is doing in China, as well as maybe some of the things that are happening in terms of the sustainability space in Japan or Southeast Asia, I welcome you to come and speak with me. I'd love to share a bit of a small window into what's going on there of what I do know. Finally, SDSN Hong Kong is actually going to be organizing its flagship conference next January. I believe Jeff will be there, as well as a lot of speakers and organizations from around the region. If you'd be interested, I think it's a great snapshot into what SDSN is doing in Asia Pacific. If you'd like to be there, please come and speak with me. I'd love to see how we can make this possible. Thanks.
I have heaps to comment about, but maybe just picking up on GCED, UNESCO, whoever doesn't know it. I have a fellow friend that I met in Hanoi at one of the GCED conferences as well here in the room. UNESCO, it's a whole world that opens up to you the moment you're tapping into GCED, which stands for Global Citizenship Education. It's been out there ever since the SDGs were formulated. It is enshrined in the SDGs as goal 4.7. And actually, as Sam pointed out, we are not measuring it. And I do get the point that you mentioned about metrics. Do we have to really be so stringent about putting everything into numbers? But what you mentioned as well with the values, and with particularly that it's our human traits that should come to the fore. This is what GCD focuses on. It focuses on the soft skills. It focuses on empathy, teaching arts, teaching music, teaching the things that we as human beings can do better than machines. Because the goal is eventually to have an educational system that accepts us as humans, not in competition to machines, but in addition to machines. And GCED is an effort to basically promote exactly where our qualities lie. And they are in the soft spectrum. They are not in the sort of mathematically hard, and that's the reason why metrics are so difficult to be established. So if any of you has experience with that, much appreciated. UNESCO needs far more input to that. And then maybe just to close with some words that Ban Ki-moon famously said, we don't have a plan B, we only have a plan A. And this plan A, my dear friends, is the Sustainable Development Goals. It is the song sheet that we sing from, it is the roadmap that we have, and it is the closest that we are to a world governmental program. And he says, we do not have a planet B, we only have the planet A, and I think Greta would join us singing that song. Thank you.
Just want to share that YMCA has over 355 branches in China, and when we think about how to navigate with partners that might be going through a difficult political time, we need to look for ways that we can sing from the same song sheet. And just as an example, YMCA youth in China are very much working today on climate change, and also HIV prevention and future of work, things like that. So look for unusual partners as we try to learn to collaborate with each other. And in difficult political waters, look for ways that we can align. Thank you.
First of all, I want to make it clear to everyone here that I'm much too young to be one of the elders. So I'm not in that group. That said, I thought I might respond to very briefly to three of the observations that were made. In metrics, you're absolutely right. It's hard to quantify everything. We can quantify emissions, but I'm not sure we can quantify peace and justice. However, I would point you to the Human Development Index as a better indication than GDP numbers of where we are in terms of human well-being. Someone over here impressed me by citing Amartya Sen, and this index flows from his ideas of sustainable freedom. Second, on the issue of social media and how it might be used. Well, we've all seen that it can be used positively or negatively, but I would say that your actions in social media should not be aimed at merely stating a point of view. They should be aimed at creating political action. Use social media to mobilize, and then, as Clay said, go out and take over the system. Don't make the mistake of believing that everything we've created over the past century in terms of international institutions should be swept away. They can all be improved, but the way to improve them is for you to get engaged in them. For example, Ms. Eden, I think, from Canada had a great idea. She too should run for office. She was talking about fossil fuel subsidies in Canada. I don't know what she's reading now. But there are rules in the WTO agreement against certain kinds of subsidies. But some of us who are lawyers and looking for a client cannot find anyone who will sue the United States or Canada over their fossil fuel subsidies. We have to have a country volunteer because only countries can bring cases. So use your technologies in these kinds of ways. Lastly, on the notion of emotional change, here I'll refer to my own domestic politics rather than impugning any of yours, but it's not the case that we need behavioral change from everyone. There are elections, some people win and some people lose. In my country right now, we have a very narrow majority holding the White House, and we have another party holding the House of Representatives, but they can't do anything while the other party holds the other two branches of government. In my view, the people in charge of the House, who happen to be in my party, don't really need behavioral change on many of the issues that we're concerned about. They're as concerned about human trafficking or the right kind of education or providing health insurance for everyone as we are. But I have to say, even with those who don't require much behavioral change, there is not the sense that we share that civilization is at risk, that we need to move away urgently from a civilization based on fossil fuels to one that is not. They're talking now about it because the polls say they should, and some of them really care about it, but they don't quite know what to do about it, nor do they understand that it's just a matter of a few appropriations and a few investments in technology. It's a matter of changing how we live. So even there, I think there is a need for this younger generation to come in and share the message with them by serving alongside them. And the old tried and true method is, if you don't like the rascals who are in, then throw the rascals out. If you're a country that don't have democracy, then demand it. If you're in a country where you can't run for office because the political parties won't let you, or they make you say certain things, start new political parties. But don't take no for an answer. We don't have time for that. Again, thank you all.
Thank you so much. I was actually at an event, and the head of the Bill Gates Foundation, and I said, what do you think, what could we do as young people? This is many years ago. And he said, be persistent and never take no for an answer. You'll knock and knock and knock, and eventually we're going to have to let you in. So I think that's also a piece of advice for some of the people, because for me, it worked. And for all the people who I asked to mentor me and support me, I'm sorry for all that knocking, but thank you for letting me in the end. So I think it really is a great way to connect the dots and create that intergenerational leadership. You have to ask for it, and you have to take the steps to make those transformations happen. So with that, I really want to thank our wonderful panel and the commentators. If you could just please join me in giving them a big round of applause. It's been a fantastic session.